Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing today? If we have stream issues, we can thank Comcast for those. I actually just got off the phone with them about 10 minutes ago because our internet was going in and out. We've basically been having intermittent issues for, I don't know, a couple weeks now. They were hitting us the first stream of this month, so I think the 8th. Was it the 8th? Or, anyways, Comcast sucks. But yeah, so if we go in and out, we're just going to keep rolling through it. Hopefully it'll sort itself out. And yeah, we're streaming from the basement office today. So if you are wondering why things look a little different, that's why. I do have some things I am working on. There will be a practical print video coming up because I'm currently in the process of doing some wall mount parts for the HP Reverb G2 here that I have. So this is a wall mount that I actually found on Thingiverse that I really like, and this is for the headset here. So this will go up on the wall. I also have mounts for the controller, and I printed these in Coax Black ABS on my Ender 5 Plus. You guys remember that printer? It's a big build I did with our multi-mount. And then we also have the controller mounts here. So these will go on the wall just like that. Look at that. Look how nice those fit. And then I also have, oh, they're all the way over here. I also have these little cable clips here because it's actually a drop ceiling down here. And I have these little like cable bungee things, which I haven't even opened yet. But let's see. We'll open these up. And I'm going to be clipping these to the drop ceiling. So I've got extensions for the cables to go up into the wall. And basically these will go into these clips here, just like that, to go on the drop ceiling. And this will then hold the cable. So basically I don't have to be tripping over it and have it going down. So I've got a 10-foot display port and USB 3 extension cable to get it up into the wall, and I'll basically go up in the wall and the drop ceiling, come down through one of the ceiling tiles, have like, looks like we just reconnected. So anyways, yay Comcast. So yeah, I'm going to use these with these little clips. So very minimalistic in terms of like permanent modification to the room. I will have to cut one hole in the wall down at the base, like it'll be underneath the desk to feed the cables through. But it'll be a nice clean install. And if this works, I'm going to go ahead and do this for Krista's headset as well. So she's got a different HP headset that I had. It was one of those mixed reality ones I bought. I think I got in 2019. So, but I picked one of these up on my brother Doug's recommendation. And you can pick these up anywhere from 300 to 400 used, which I got this used for $350. And this is a really nice headset if you're not looking to go and get the Valve Index, which is what he has, which is a nice headset. But I'm waiting until they have wireless for it, because in our theater room we have an older HTC Vive with a wireless TP Cast adapter, and that's fine for just casual gaming. But now we each have a headset, so we can play some games together. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, I did want to show you guys what I did on my birthday. So if you do not like if you do not like printers and firearms, I suggest you turn the YouTube off for, I don't know, about a minute here. But I'm going to pull it up. I posted it on my personal channel on the shorts here. So let me see if this works. I should be able to do a screen share. Let's see if it works. Look at that. Screen share is working on my computer down here. All right, here. So this is what we did. If you guys remember the Anet A8, the A8 Plus, I should say. I had one and it sucked. So this is what I did with it. Today I'm going to show you guys how to unclog a clogged hot end on an Anet A8 Plus. The first thing you're going to need to do is take whatever handgun you have lying around, put your ammo in it, rack it, and then just deal with it. And just like that, the hot end's not clogged anymore. So yeah, that's what I did on my birthday. The hot end was indeed clogged. I'm pretty sure it's no longer clogged because it went right through it. Um, yeah, that last that the video after I walked off was yeah, one David Hefner got it, 1 pound of tannerite. So that was you could hear me could have hear me giggling when it went off because that was my first time ever messing around with that. Um, it was fun. It was hard to hit that. I only have a red dot on my my rifle with no magnification. I was probably about, I don't know, like 50 yards out from it. So, but yeah, that was fun. That printer was such a pile. Like the board was going out. The only thing I pulled off of it before we took care of it was I had put a 24-volt mean well on there. So that was useful. I took that off. Um, and so that's actually going to go on the Solvo SVO1 or SVO6. So which we do have the firmware working on. So there are some weird caveats with that printer. So if you guys are working with any printer that has these GD32 knockoff chips on them, one thing I found, and I don't know if he's watching here, but I think SKL is his username on here on YouTube, is that with the GigaDevice chips, and this is also true with the Creality boards I also found after learning this about the Solvo boards with the GD chips, is that when you try to flash the firmware, so let's say I have the printer, I'm updating it to the firmware I just downloaded from our website. It'll update one time, but then if you put a new firmware build on the SD card, even if the name's different, put into the printer and boot it back up, it won't flash again. What you actually have to do is go back to the stock firmware and then go back to the next update. So what I did while testing this, just to make, to keep what little hair I have left, I have an SD card with the stock Solvo firmware that SKL sent me. And basically when I'm, if like, okay, I got to change something, I'll just put the stock one in, power cycle the printer and let it do that while I'm updating or recompiling. So we are including that file in the next firmware release. We are really, really close to calling 2.6 done. It's still in beta. We just are running through final compile testing. And the issue with the Ender 7, where I had those drunken looking benchies, is just the Ender 7's drivers don't play nicely right now with input shaping. And I have not found a way to actually hook up to them and like change their modes. So I'll probably just have that printer listed as, hey, use at your own risk with input shaping, which is a shame because it's a Core XY. But there's definitely some oddities with how they have those drivers set up. And in terms of making like an adapter kit to convert it, I don't think it's going to be worth the time to do that. So, just use it without input shaping. It actually prints really well without it. So, but I will be playing with input shaping on my Ender 6. I am looking at getting the EasyBoard V2 supported for the SVO6, so the Solvo SVO6, to replace that crappy GigaDevice board they have in there. And it's a shame because that board, if it had a regular STM CPU, it runs so much better and we wouldn't have these weird flashing issues where you got to go back to stock, then to the new firmware, because that board's got a lot of good features on it. So I do still really like the SVO6. I do think it's a good buy. My takeaways from that are, I wish it didn't have a clone processor. It does work. So it does get the job done. And the other thing is, like, they are using the crappy Changling power supplies, and my particular model had over 6 ohms of resistance between ground and its chassis, which is, not safe. So I will be replacing that with a mean well. I do already have our cover in the power supply, and I will be doing a video on replacing that. So I'm just going to do a quick video where I record it and we'll edit it up, and it'll just basically be a quick, here's how to replace the power supply type video. Other stuff, if you guys are waiting for us to restock the Ender 2 Pro power supply kits, those are back in stock. I just made a bunch of them. And they're in stock, ready to ship. So if you guys are looking to upgrade your power supply for the Ender 2 Pro, those are ready to order, so you can go ahead and just order from our shop and they'll ship out. All right. Well, if you guys are new to this stream, you guys ask me questions about your FDM printers, I will try my best to answer them. Do bear with us if you get the spinning wheel of death. We are dealing with Comcast being incompetent for the, I don't know, billionth time. How many times? I feel like every time we have an issue with Comcast, I should put like a tally on a wall somewhere, or have like a sign behind me that says this many days since we had issues with our ISP. It's like a running joke now. So anyways, all right, so the first question in the queue here, and you guys have to use this. So if you want to ask a question, you type !Q space your question, and then the bot will pick it up. So if you don't do that, I probably won't see your question. We do this just because this helps keep it organized, and then I have an order in which I answer them. So, all right. Awesome Angel is the one with the first question. He said, is the Orange Pi PC any good for us as an alternative for the Raspberry Pi for Octoprint? So I've messed around with the Orange Pi boards and I found them to be not super reliable. You can run Octoprint on any Linux system. It's just how much work are you willing to put in to get the get Octoprint running on it. I've had better luck with the Rock boards. And Orange Pi is a big company and they have tons of boards. So I'm sure there are some that are like really hard to get working with Octoprint. There's others that are probably better. I don't have a ton of experience with them because I had a lot of issues getting them to work reliably when I've used them for projects many years ago. They might be better now, supported. I stay away from them. So, all right, let's see. William Fricks got a Mendel 190. Oh man, I gotta look that up. Is that one of the leads, the threaded rod, or the Mendel 90? Is that one of like the threaded rod ones? Oh, it was like one of the old i3s. It was like the OG i3s. I was thinking of the ones, you guys know what I'm talking about, for you guys have been in 3D printing for a while, where the whole frame was threaded rod. Yeah. So he says Melzy is moving to a Manta 8P. Are there configuration notes from the original Marlin I can use in Clipper? So the thing with Clipper is like they don't use steps per millimeter, so you're gonna have to recalculate those. I can't tell you how to recalculate them. I'll be in full disclosure, I'm not a fan of Clipper. I found it very overly complicated. I found the documentation to be severely lacking, and the Clipper community, this is all my personal experience, has been very toxic. So I do not do anything with Clipper. So, you're basically going to be on your own. The other thing is, if you don't want to deal with the Clipper community, if they're not of any help, because there's kind of like this air of arrogance there where if you ask a question, they're just going to tell you to read the documentation, but the documentation isn't very clear in my opinion. We do have a lot of people that use Clipper in our Discord server. So you can post in our Discord server. You can just go to discord.th3dstudio.com. But I do not do anything with Clipper just because I found it's diminishing returns. You have a ton of time you put into it. It's complicated. There's a lot more parts that can break compared to running Marlin. And again, when you need help, if you go to their communities, they're not very friendly. And this is all based on my personal experience. You guys might have something different. But a lot of other people have had similar experiences where the Clipper community has been very toxic and arrogant, or whatever you want to call it. So I just stay away from them. All right, Joe Velasco says, which hot end is in Ender 7? I think mine might have a partial blockage. I actually have not taken my fan shroud apart on that one. I was originally going to put the Ender 7 down here, but I have a buddy of mine that is probably going to buy that off me, so I might end up just selling that since we're done doing our R&D on there. But it is a specific hot end to that printer. I'll go ahead and take mine apart and just snap some pictures so I have them for reference. But yeah, it's its own hot end for that particular machine, as far as I'm aware. But I will have to open it up and look. But yeah, I thought I remember reading that. The hot end on that was designed for that machine, because that was one of the printers that were boasting high print speeds, and I can say that it does do pretty well at higher print speeds. So their claims aren't complete BS like most of the printer claims from these companies are. I don't have any major complaints with the printer, other than I think it was priced a little high to begin with. They've been clearancing them out. For the bone stock machines, anywhere from, I've seen like 300 up to 500. And even I think some people saw them for like 240 at some point, but that was like, we did a stream. I think as we were doing the stream, I was like, someone's like, Amazon has them for 250, and they got sold out. And I haven't seen them that cheap ever since. So, all right. So yeah, I know it's a specific hot end. I can't tell you what hot end it is, other than I know it comes with one specific for that printer. So it's a Creality hot end. I don't know if it's a modified one of their existing one, because I haven't taken it apart yet I've been doing a lot of software work on it. All right. Ender 3v2. Bean says his Ender 3v2 gets random layer shifts on the x-axis. Replaced the main board, went away for a while, and started again recently. Could it be the stepper motor or belt? So the issue is typically those motors overheat. It's a very common problem with the Ender 3v2. I would assume that you probably replaced it with the original, like another 422 board. Either way, typically what we've seen with the Ender 3v2s, I haven't had it happen with ours, but I have had many other people tell me is that they've had layer shifts on the X and Y, and what causes the layer shifting is the board overheating. The Creality boards are not thermally designed very well. Those drivers are trinamic drivers on there, so they run really hot. So what happens is, as you're running prints, things are getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and eventually to protect itself, the driver shuts off, and then you get layer shift. So basically, layer shift is the driver shutting itself off for a little bit so it can cool down, and it comes back online and starts printing. The one thing you can do is, I believe I remember seeing covers for the enclosure that have spots for larger fans or even more airflow. I've also seen people raise the printer up a little bit to get more airflow underneath the control box. The other thing too, as well, is you could replace that board with our EasyBoard V2, which doesn't have overheating issues because it is properly designed. So there's that, but it's more than likely an overheating problem. The 427 boards typically do a little bit better with the Ender 3 V2 because they have larger physical driver chips, but for some reason, just the way that the enclosure is on that printer, it does run hot. And if you're getting layer shifting, it's probably because the driver's shutting down. Especially if you replace the board, I would assume if I had that printer here and I was working on it, I would assume that there's some sort of thermal issue going on that's causing it to throttle itself, which is then shutting off, and then that's where you get all the layer shifting from. All right. Let's see. All right. So John C, let's see. He's using the T3 firmware, the Big Tree Tech E3 V3 with the TFT and the CR Touch. Upon auto home, the nozzle keeps grinding into the bed. It does it with the old Creality board as well. What should I be looking at? It sounds like your sensor is not detecting the bed. You should try doing a M119 and make sure that your end stop is reading its connection. M119 is your end stop test. So what that does is it will tell you, like, let's say you have your X, your print head's in the middle of the printer's axis and your bed's in the middle, so it's not up against the end stop switches. And your probe pin is up into the probe. If you run an M119, you should see that the X and Y are open and the Z should show triggered. So the Z, when the pin is down on a CR Touch, for all setup purposes, wiring purposes, that kind of stuff, it's a BL Touch. So basically, if your Z is never seeing that it's triggered, it could be that you have, and this is the most common issue, you could have a bad sensor because the CR Touches they're garbage. Like, I'll just be honest. I'm sure there's many people that can vouch for it in the chat. We do sell a competing product, but if they worked well, we would sell them. But they're really crappy probes in that they're not very reliable. But the thing with the BL Touches and the CR Touches is that there's 5 wires to drive them. So you have to get every single wire correct or it will not work. And most people do not get the wiring correct. So you need to check your wiring. And the way to check your wires, make sure you have your ground. There's 2 ground wires. You need to make sure those are both going to the ground pins on the board. I believe the E3 Mini version 3 has a 5-pin header. And that 5-pin header is typically, I think it's like ground, 5-volt, and then a signal pin, and then a ground and another signal pin. But look at the reference because that's not our board, but I do have that board because we've tested firmware on it. But it probably is going to be something with your wiring. That's typically the case. The other thing too is if you get your wiring wrong, and I see a lot of people do this where they'll flip a ground and a 5-volt, and because that probe has 2 grounds, they will completely short out the 5-volt rail on the board. And the Big Tree Tech boards do not do very well with those because their voltage regulators don't usually shut off like they're supposed to. So, but yeah, I would check the wiring. The first place I would check to make sure your wiring is good. Like I said, you're gonna have 2 ground pins, 2 signal pins. One is the control pin that actually controls whether the pin gets deployed or retracted, and the other one is actually the signal pin that tells it whether it is detecting the bed or not, meaning if the pin is up or down, that kind of thing. So if you get frustrated and tired of messing with it, our Easy ABL kits do work with those, and we have technical support. So if you have a problem, you actually have people here in the US that you can talk to. instead of having to ask a random guy on YouTube. So, all right. Lilo Man says, what firmware do you use on your boards, Marlin? Yes. So our Unified 2 firmware is our customized version of Marlin. So on the back end, our Unified 2 firmware is Marlin 2. So our firmware, the goal is to take Marlin, make it a lot easier to use for people to set up and compile, and also have predefined printer setups so you don't have to worry about, okay, what is my end stop inversion? What is my motor direction? What are my steps per millimeter? You know, all these other features that you would normally be having to manually enter into Marlin. We've taken care of all that because we actually test them on actual physical machines. So when you guys see us buying printers, it's not because I need more printers or I have a problem where I buy printers and I'm just hoarding them. We are buying them because I'm actually testing firmware and writing code to run the firmware on these printers. I have so many printers we don't need to buy anymore, but we keep buying them because we want to make sure that the firmware that we put out works on that, which then also goes into supporting our products like our Easy ABL, our Easy Neo kits, our Easy Out filament sensor kits, you know, or different upgrades. You know, and the benefit is everybody gets free firmware for their printer, for their stock machines. So, all right. Howard Perkins asked, I saw you work on the SVO6. Is it working better? Also, will you add EasyABL support for it? So it is working better. The stock probe seems to be okay, but I'm probably just going to replace it with one of ours because I don't trust that it's going to work long term. I'd rather just get it over with now. So the stock firmware will support the stock probe. I will be making a mount where you can take off their probe, put our EasyABL on there if you want. So basically, if you have an issue with the stock one, or you just don't want to deal with it, maybe you want to, you know, you're one of those people who wants to run glass or Garolite. Our sensors work on glass and Garolite beds. You know, I don't personally like glass, and I don't use Garolite because I don't do nylon, and I wouldn't be doing nylon on that one. But anyways, our sensors work on all surfaces, whereas a stock probe on there will not detect glass or plastic type surfaces. It'll only work on metal surfaces. So as it comes from the factory, that's fine. But yeah, the firmware, I will be adding EasyABL support for it. We'll have a mount and everything, so don't worry about it. I figured as much because, like, even with the Ender 3S1, that was a printer that came with a bed leveling probe, and I wasn't originally going to do an EasyABL support for it, but then we started getting people asking us, yeah, are we going to put the EasyABL on here because I'm having so many issues with the CR Touch. So, yeah, so I will be doing that because I'm going to put it on mine, and I think Krista wants that printer. I was originally actually going to take it because I don't have a printer right here. This is my secondary office downstairs. I want a printer right here so I can do some prototyping and firmware testing here. And I was going to put the SVO6 here, but I think she's going to take that. I might just take her Ender 2 Pro because I do like that little printer. I was originally going to put the Ender 7 down here, but holy shit is that printer loud, and I don't think I want to be listening to it. The SVO6 is actually a very quiet machine. So like I said, I really like the SVO6, and at the price point, I'm willing to overlook the crappy power supply, and I'm willing to overlook the clone processor, because if I take those two parts out of the equation, you still get a lot of printer for the money, and it is built very well. So my plans for my SVO6 is replacing the power supply with Meanwhile 350 that we carry, using the cover that we designed for that power supply, and then transplanting the AC receptacle from the stock power supply cover to our cover, and then bolting it up. It's actually going to be a really easy upgrade. It'll probably be a couple-minute video of just taking the power supply off, showing you guys how to dismount it, make the new connections, put it on, and then you're done. So it'll be a really quick upgrade. And then I will be getting the EasyBoard V2, working on that printer as well, even with the stock probe. I actually looked at how they wired it up, and their stock probe is connected to what would be like the BL Touch header on that board. So I will be documenting how to connect the 5-pin cable. We're just going to use little male to female DuPont jumpers. You guys familiar with those? Or actually, now I think about it, if we just repin the cable, I'll probably just repin the cable, because then we can shove it onto our BL Touch header on our control board and use that to drive it. We may not even need to repin the cable. I think we might. I don't know if I'm going to get that lucky, but either way, I'm going to figure it out and document it. So if you guys wanted to switch out the board on your SVO6, you can drop our EasyBoard V2 in there. So, all right. More questions. Tommy O, have I tried Starlink? I tried getting it, and then we got T-Mobile 5G. I think, are we on? We might be on that right now. I'm going to check my WAN IP right now. We're on Comcast. But basically the issues we're having right now with Comcast is it's fine just for piddly day-to-day crap, but For example, I was downloading, I don't know if it's still available, but for you Command and Conquer fans, there was the remastered collection was $3 on Steam, and it was like a 25 gig download. And as soon as I started downloading it and loading down the line, it started having connection drops. So it's fine for, piddly stuff. But as soon as you start actually transmitting bandwidth through it, it just starts falling apart. So, all right. Let's see here. All right. DNF Frost said, what's wrong with the SV06? Mine works great. But his Ender 5 S1 won't print anything. It fails. I have a Sonic Pad still not having. Yeah, the Sonic Pad is just gonna make things worse. And I still don't recommend the Sonic Pad. The Sonic Pad is running stolen code from the community, so please don't buy it. Because if you're buying it, you're basically telling Creality you're fine with buying, them stealing code from the community and not giving back source code. What's wrong with the SV06? Like I said, I think the SV06 is a good bang for the buck, but they're using a knockoff processor on the board, which has weird issues when it comes to updating the firmware, meaning you can't just keep updating the firmware. You have to go back to stock and then update. It's annoying. And there's also weirdness with the beeper pins, but I found a workaround with that. But either way, it's not running an STM processor, and they're cost cutting. And they took what could have been a really good board for a stock printer board and made it kind of crappy by putting on the knockoff processors. They're knockoffs of the STM processors. They are. They're knockoffs. They're copies. They're basically, the part numbers are exactly the same as STM part numbers, except instead of STM32 at the front, it starts with a GD32. I don't like knockoffs, especially on processors. Like, it's not fun. I haven't messed with the Ender 5 S1. I do have a buddy in Illinois named Matt, which I got to reach out to and link up with him because he does have an Ender 5 S1, and that printer will probably be getting an LCD kit, new firmware, that kind of stuff, because they do have the crappy touchscreens on there. You would think that by this point they would have a touchscreen that the community could actually do updates to make it better, because they suck at doing firmware. But apparently they just aren't learning. So I guess more opportunities for us to sell upgrade kits that fix problems with these printer software. So, JA, do I have Meanwhile power supplies and mounts for the SV06? Yes, they're on the site right now. So if you want to get those, it's a 350 watt, 24 volt Meanwhile. And then we have the cover. If you want us to print the cover for you, it's $8. If you want to get the STL file, it is on the site for $2, and that just goes over the bottom, and it will work with the stock receptacle. So if you want to wait for the video, I should have that video out in a couple days, because I am chomping at the bit to get that printer done. And that'll be the first new printer added to the new Unified 2.6 release. So, another person asked about the SV06. How's it been? It's been working fine, and I've been running our test firmware on it. I like it a lot, especially for the price. Is Comet still in the doghouse? Yeah, Comet is not being trusted without direct supervision. He's not even 5 months old, so I'm gonna cut him some slack. But still, yeah, I don't want to deal with him randomly peeing places, because he'll be fine, and all of a sudden he'll just decide to go off in a corner and pee, and he doesn't tell us he has to go out, and it's really annoying. So. Yeah, and he ate one of my drones. All right. Vega said, I got my copycat or Ender 5 Plus going the Mosquito and Direct Drive. Prints look great so far, but I'm having string. It would be a good starting point for retraction. I think I'm running like a 0.8 millimeter retraction on there, and I'm running it fast. I think I'm doing 100 millimeter a second, 0.7 or 0.8 retraction. The other thing is, if you're getting stringing, try dropping your print temps down. If you exactly duplicated my setup, you're going to be running the copper nozzle, drop your print temps down a little bit. You might be running it too hot. 3 experiments, the bot messed up. Please send your question again. It didn't actually add it to my list here. Leo Man says, if I decide to change my axes, belt teeth sizes, or a bigger pulley, how do I change that setting in Marlin? So you'd be wanting to change your steps per millimeter in your firmware. So that's anytime you change how many, the type of belts you're using, you're going up or down in pulley size, it's all going to change your steps per millimeter. That's what you would be looking at changing. So let's say you change it on your X, you'd want to recalibrate it and, tell it to move 10. Usually what I'll do is I'll set a rough, like let's say I'll just set 100 and then I'll tell it to move 10 millimeters. If it moves less than that, I'll up the steps per millimeter. If it moves more than that, I'll drop the steps per millimeter. Typically with your axes, you're going to have pretty set sizes. You're going to have pretty set sizes or values, I should say, for the steps per millimeter. I have not ever used partial steps on the belts. But yeah, there's also plenty of guides. Like if you're using this type of belt with this many teeth pulley, with this stepper driver, these are your steps per millimeter. They're pretty static, but you can also calibrate them kind of like you do E-steps, but just instead of extruding a piece of filament, you're telling it to move X amount. All right. So Bean with the overheating board says he had put a 427 board in and he put a Noctua fan in it. That's probably why it's overheating. Noctua fans are garbage for printers because people put them in because they're quiet, but they're quiet because they don't move a lot of air. So you're using fans that are not intended for this application. You're going to have a fan that moves some air, and that means it's going to make some noise. There's a reason we don't sell Noctuas is because the Noctua fans move too little air to properly cool these printers in most cases. I'm sure there are cases where they would work okay, but in general, the Noctua fans that people use do not move enough air. That's why we don't sell them, because I don't want to be getting tickets saying, hey, I put your guys' Noctua fan in my printer, and now things are overheating. We've tested them in-house. They don't move enough air, so we don't sell them. So if you're following Facebook groups or people on Reddit telling you to put Noctua fans in there, you're probably going to have overheating issues. Put a real fan in there that isn't a low-flow Noctua. So there we go. The Meanwhile is out of stock. We do have more on the way in right now. I actually just did inventory this morning. So we should have more of those in. I'm assuming that's a 350 24. I'm checking right now. I know we had a few of those. I think people must have bought them once we talked about them when we did the stream. But yeah, they are being restocked right now. I would assume about a week we should have them. So if you do get them from elsewhere, if you're being impatient, make sure you check the serial number because there's a lot of fakes out there. Meanwhile, is a very popular power supply company. Remo, leave it. Come here. He was messing with one of Krista's plants. He was going to sniff one of the prickly plants, which means he would get little pokes in his nose. I don't think you'd want to do that, buddy. All right. Tommy was asking, will the EasyABL work on a Series 10 V2 with Clipper? Yes, it will. In terms of helping you set up Clipper, we don't do tech support for Clipper because Clipper is a pain in the ass. But yes, the EasyABL works with Clipper. Many people use them. It just works like a normally open end-stop switch. So, and Clipper supports those type of probes. For your experience, what is STM, MCU, RAM, ROM, speed would you say is needed for latest features of Marlin-like input shapers? So I've been testing them on the Ender 7, and that has the 72 megahertz STM32F103. And while it does run input shaping and it does run, actually print well, it does make the LCD lag because that processor is just fully taxed. I can confirm that on our EasyBoard V1, which is our old EasyBoard that we haven't sold for over a year now, handles it with no issues. Our V2 handles it with no issues. But basically, these boards with the slower processors like the SKR E3 Mini Series, the Creality 422s, the 431s, the 427s, they'll be able to run it, but your LCD is going to run slow because the because the processor is just being taxed. And what Marlin does is, so you have good print quality, is it will throttle the LCD updates to sacrifice, basically sacrifice the LCD updates and make them, laggy in favor of having smooth printing. So, all right.